I was standing in line at the pharmacy, clutching a white paper bag with my prescription, when I felt a light tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw an older woman with kind eyes and neatly brushed gray hair. She looked at me like she had seen a ghost. "You look just like my sister," she said softly, almost in disbelief. I smiled politely. It wasn't the first time I'd been told I resembled someone. I offered a quiet, "Oh, wow, that's funny," and was about to turn back when she added, "She went missing 25 years ago." My smile froze. Something about the way she said it, calm, assured, like she'd been holding on to this fact for decades, made my heart tap against my ribs. I gave a nervous little laugh. "Really? That's wild," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "What was her name?" She looked me square in the eyes. Her voice didn't waver. "Your name." The bottle slipped from my fingers. It hit the tiled floor with a soft thud, rolling beneath the counter. I didn't even move to pick it up. My breath caught in my throat, tangled in disbelief. "Excuse me?" I asked, but my voice didn't sound like mine. She stepped closer. "Her name was Amelia," she said. "Amelia Dawn. She was 6 years old when she disappeared." "Amelia. My name was Amelia." I stumbled out of that pharmacy in a daze, the woman's number scribbled shakily on the back of a receipt. My mind was spinning, tripping over itself. I had always felt off. As a child, I asked my parents why there were no baby pictures of me. They'd laugh it off and say the albums got damaged in a move. They never let me visit extended family, never showed me any relatives. Every question I asked was answered too quickly, like a script they'd memorized. There were no birthday stories, no tales of my first words or first steps, no keepsakes, just a strange emptiness. My name was Amelia Dawn, but I was always told that my parents just liked the sound of it. And now this woman, Elaine, said she had a sister named Amelia Dawn, who vanished at the age of 6. I sat on the floor in my apartment, clutching a photo she sent me later that night. A grainy picture of a little girl with dark curls, missing her 2 front teeth, smiling at a birthday cake. The name, Amelia, spelled in bright pink frosting. That girl looked exactly like me. But I didn't remember the cake, or the candles, or the hands that must have once held me. I began digging. Hard. I ordered my birth certificate. It came back flagged, delayed for review. I asked my mother outright. She looked terrified. "Why would you ask that?" she snapped. "Of course you're ours. Don't be ridiculous." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't sleep that night. There was one person who tethered me to my version of the world. Maya, my daughter, 6 years old, bright, curious, loved space and sea turtles and peanut butter on everything. She had my curls and a wild laugh that could break sadness like glass. She was the only thing that ever felt real. I watched her sleep that night, curled up with her stuffed elephant, and wondered what kind of mother could steal someone else's child and call them their own. Because if Elaine was right, and I was Amelia, then the people who raised me weren't my parents. They were kidnappers, and that meant Maya was growing up in the shadow of a lie. I couldn't let that be our story. I wouldn't. Maya gave me the courage to face what I'd always feared, that my life had been stolen and rewritten, and that somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. I didn't go back to the pharmacy. I didn't return Elaine's call immediately either. Instead, I booked a session with a therapist and told her everything. She didn't flinch. "This kind of trauma, identity trauma, is more common than you think," she said. "But it's going to hurt. You'll be grieving a life you never even knew you lost." She was right. It wasn't just confusion. It was mourning. Mourning for birthdays missed, for lullabies never sung, for the real parents I might have had, who perhaps searched for me for years, for the sister I never got to grow up with. Elaine had sent another email, a link to a news article from 1998. Amelia Dawn, age 6, missing from park in Brooklyn. There was a black and white photo, the same cake smile, the same curls. Police believed she was abducted during a family picnic. A witness had seen a woman walking with a child, but no one saw where they went. And then nothing. Elaine said her parents died heartbroken, that she never gave up. She told me she'd never stopped believing I was alive. I cried for a long time. I started rebuilding from that place. I took a DNA test. I tracked down the detective who was still alive, retired, but had never closed the case. The results would take time. In the meantime, I started writing. It was something I hadn't done since high school. I wrote about identity, memory, and the haunting silence of unanswered questions. I freelanced for a parenting site. I told stories of mothers and daughters, always skirting the line of my own. Maya grew. She'd sit beside me with her crayons while I typed, and slowly, the cracks in my reality didn't hurt as much. They became windows, glimpses into a life I was reclaiming, one sentence at a time. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday morning. The email subject line read, "Results ready, view online." I clicked, hands trembling. Elaine Foster, 99.97% match, biological sister. I stopped breathing. There it was. Not a theory, not a guess, a scientific confirmation that my life was not what I thought it was. I wasn't raised by my parents. I was taken. I sat with that truth for hours, then called Elaine. She cried before I even spoke. "It's really you, isn't it?" she whispered. "Yes," I replied. "It's me." She told me about my favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Pickles, about how I used to sing the ABCs backward just to make her laugh, about the night I vanished, and how she blamed herself for turning away for just a minute. Her voice cracked. "I never stopped looking, Amelia." I felt my chest collapse inward, like a home I'd never been to was calling me back. A week later, we met in person. We chose a park, not the park, but one just like it, neutral ground. Elaine brought old photos and peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles. We sat on the grass like sisters. She held my hands. "They told us you were probably gone. But I never believed that. And when I saw you at the pharmacy, it was like the earth stopped." I told her about Maya, about the lies I grew up with, about the strange silences and missing years, and the fear I'd always carried without understanding why. Elaine said the woman who took me had been a family acquaintance once, someone no one thought twice about. A woman named Carol who'd attended my 6th birthday party. Quiet, unremarkable. She and her husband disappeared 2 days after I did. They'd changed their names, rebuilt lives, pretended I was theirs. That's who raised me. I didn't know how to process it, so I didn't. Not all at once. 3 weeks later, I got a call from my mother, the woman I now knew as Carol. Her voice was tight, angry. "You've been talking to that woman, haven't you?" I said nothing. "You're our daughter. I don't care what some website or test says. We raised you. We loved you. You kidnapped me," I whispered. "You stole me." "We saved you," she snapped. "You don't remember what it was like. Your parents, your real ones, neglected you. We gave you a better life." It was the moment the veil finally dropped. There was no remorse, no apology, only justification. She truly believed the lie she'd lived. I hung up without another word. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Elaine's voice, soft, patient, loving, the way she said my name like it was sacred. And I remembered Maya, her laughter, her eyes, how I'd do anything to protect her. That's when I made the decision to speak, to tell the world what had happened to me. Not for revenge, but for truth. For the little girl I was. For Maya. For anyone who'd ever felt their reality fracture and didn't have the words to name it. I agreed to appear on a local investigative program. They ran the segment with side-by-side photos, my childhood, and the missing poster. The host told my story like a mystery unraveling after 2.5 decades of silence. I spoke with clarity I didn't know I had. My name is Amelia Dawn Foster. I was abducted at the age of 6 by people who claimed to love me, but their love was built on theft. They showed footage of me and Elaine reuniting. The response was instant. My inbox filled with messages, some supportive, others full of doubt. But the truth doesn't need everyone's approval. It just needs light. A lawyer contacted me pro bono. He wanted to help me file criminal charges against Carol and her husband. The case reopened. The detectives interviewed me, Elaine, and old family friends. Carol was arrested within 2 weeks. Her husband fled, last seen heading toward the state border. Suddenly, I was on the evening news, a recovered missing person case in real time. But I didn't feel like a headline. I felt like a woman digging herself out of her own grave. Elaine and I sat down with the original detective, Detective Ruiz, who had worked the case in 1998. He looked at me like I was a miracle. I've worked hundreds of cases, he said, but this is the one I never forgot. I cried in his office. For the first time, I allowed myself to mourn the girl I never got to be, the parents I lost, the life interrupted. Ruiz gave me a copy of the original missing person report, my tiny fingerprint stamped at the bottom, a relic of who I once was. I pressed my fingers over it, not to erase the past, but to hold it. The courtroom was silent. Carol sat across from me in the defendant's chair, her hair pulled back, face unreadable. I wasn't there for vengeance, but I won't lie. A part of me wanted to see some flicker of regret in her eyes. There was none. Her lawyer claimed she rescued me from a dysfunctional home, that she had acted out of maternal instinct. But the DNA evidence, the falsified records, the interviews with Elaine and Detective Ruiz, they painted a different picture, one the jury couldn't ignore. The judge spoke clearly, firmly. Carol Winters, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for kidnapping, fraud, and falsification of identity. She didn't look at me. She didn't say goodbye. As the bailiff led her away, I felt nothing. No joy, no rage, just release. The door to my past had finally closed, not with drama, with finality, and that was enough. Elaine gripped my hand. You're free now, Emmy. Emmy, that was the nickname they used for me when I was little. I didn't remember it, but it felt like home. In the weeks after the trial, my story went viral. Woman discovers she's a missing person at a pharmacy. That was the headline that circled the internet. Some said it sounded like fiction, a movie script, but every word was true. I was invited to podcasts, parenting panels, survivor conferences. But I didn't want to be a media figure. I just wanted to live. So I created something instead. A nonprofit, Return to Light. A platform for helping adults who discover late in life that they were abducted, adopted illegally, or raised under false pretenses. We offered legal aid, mental health resources, and DNA testing subsidies. I poured myself into it, not to escape, but to transform. Maya helped pack donation boxes in our living room. Elaine became our operations manager. Detective Ruiz even joined the board. People started reaching out. A woman from Texas, a man from Detroit, a mother in Ontario who never stopped searching for her son. Our little organization became a lifeline, and I became Amelia Dawn Foster again, not just on paper, but in spirit. I still had gaps in memory, Still woke from dreams where I was lost in a crowd and no one called my name. But when Maya hugged me, when Elaine smiled across the table, when someone emailed to say, "Your story helped me start mine," I knew I was no longer lost. I had come home. One quiet evening, months later, I stood in the kitchen making tea. The kettle whistled softly, steam curling into the air like breath. Maya sat at the table, flipping through a scrapbook Elaine had made, filled with photos of my real family, birthdays I never remembered, love that never got to grow. She looked up. "Mom," she asked, "do you think I'll ever meet Grandma and Grandpa? The real ones?" I paused. The ache came back, gentle this time, like an echo, not a scream. "I hope so, baby," I said, "but even if you don't, I'll tell you everything about them. I promise." She smiled, pushing a drawing toward me. It was us, me, her, and a woman with gray hair holding both our hands. "Is that me and you?" I asked. "And Aunt Elaine," Maya said proudly. "I like her. She makes good sandwiches." I laughed. The kettle clicked off. I poured the tea and stood at the sink, looking out the window as dusk settled over the city. The streetlights blinked on one by one. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, then faded. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't the frightened woman at the pharmacy. I was a mother, a sister, a survivor. And when I closed my eyes that night, I didn't fall asleep with questions. I fell asleep with peace.